Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel because that encourages me to prepare material to share with you. As I promised to you, this was the second volume of the filler video, and this volume will cover a lot about choices of fillers, what to use in which areas, and then how to focus on each individual areas like the upper face, the mid face, the lower face, in the neck, how to do rejuvenation, volume augmentation, medical rhinoplasty, what is Nefertiti jawline. All of these things will be available to you in this video. Hello everybody. So I'm back again here with all about fillers video. My declaration, I have absolutely no financial interest in any of the products that I will use or I will mention in this video. Now this is based on my personal experience since 1998 and my extensive research. Now we're going to see the indications of fillers, the filler selection method, techniques and complications and the management of complications in my subsequent video. In the upper face, which are the places you can use fillers and for what? You can use for static lines and glabellar lines like these ones, for temporal hollowing like this patient here, for brow rejuvenation, for wrinkles in the brow, for lifting of the brow, correcting the upper lid sulcus, or correcting this A deformity by using filler in this area here. In the mid face, where can we use fillers, and we will see subsequently what kind of fillers to use. So the commonest indication is periorbital rejuvenation, the tear trough deformity in a young patient, or a tear trough deformity in an older patient, for cheek enhancement or for cheek lift, for nasolabial region improvement, and even buccal area. So these are all the indications in the mid face for fillers. In the lower face, the indications are the labiomental fold or the marionette area, and even the chin, around the chin area, then the jawline, the vertical part of the jawline, the horizontal part of the jawline. Then for neck, the static lines in the neck can be improved with fillers, and to some extent wrinkled skin in the neck and the décolletage called crepe skin can be improved with fillers as well. There are other indications as well, and again yet another popular indication is lip enlargement, then for nose augmentation or correction, chin augmentation, some facial deformities, depressed scars, hand rejuvenation, buttock augmentation, and so on. Now these are all contraindications. It's all available in the literature, but important thing to understand here is patients with anaphylactic reaction or active diseases, even autoimmune diseases, keloidal tendencies are contraindications. Unrealistic expectations are also contraindication, and if they have used permanent fillers in the past is also contraindication, and some relative contraindication like bleeding disorders, anticoagulants, and etc. It's very important to have a detailed medical history, to ask the patient the area of concerns and to record the area of concerns and record your own findings. Then the detailed medical history, past treatment, allergies, what are they expecting, do complete counseling on what to expect out of the fillers, take proper photos, and inform consent. Now what are the range of fillers? Now these are the range of fillers that I have used and probably is available for most of us to use. Juvederm with voluma, ultra, volbella, voliore or volift, ultra plus. Restylane group of fillers, Restylane, defyne, refyne, lyft, silk. Belotero is becoming popular now. Belotero hydro, soft, balance, intense, volume. I've only used balance so far. Teosyal Rh 1, 2, 3, 4. I have used all of these. Radius, calcium hydroxyapatite, I do use time to time. Novio, which is organic filler in combination, like I said before, with Kaha and glycine and proline. I've used some of these. Let's know some of the fillers in brief. A quick recap of what we have already seen. So Restylane is 20 mg per ml. It's oldest of all. And for under eyes, I feel it's still the best filler. It is the right balance of stiffness, cohesivity. The duration of effect is also very good. I've seen it last a year or even longer. And there is relatively less risk of swelling and Tyndall effect with Restylane. Now Restylane refyne and defyne are next generation hyaluronic acid fillers. Refyne is smaller particles with less cross-linking. Defyne is bigger particles with more cross-linking. And of course the cross-linking here is slightly different. It is express Han. It's more flexible to stretch and recoil, and it has low swelling. Therefore it can also be used in areas with a lot of facial movement, like these periorbital wrinkles, perioral wrinkles. So it is considered to myomodulate the muscle. So if you use fillers in this area, the smile lines become less. Same thing with perioral rejuvenation. And even on the cheek lines, people who have a lot of radial cheek lines, you can improve with Restylane refyne, and that reduces the dynamic cheek lines. Then they have Restylane silk and Restylane lift. Silk is thinnest and softest version of the Restylane, but it does have higher swelling capacity because of cross-linking mechanism, so it's not so good for thin skin. Although it is thinnest, I still feel it is good for deep injection or for lift, where you want to use it in the subcutaneous plane in thicker skin individual. Whereas Restylane lift, of course, is large gel particles. It was a Restylane Perlane in the past and can be used for deeper layer injection. Then Juvederm group of fillers, Juvederm Ultra and Ultra Plus is still available, but was used in the past. It used 24 mg of hyaluronic acid and had much more cross-linking. So although it lasted long, it had slightly higher risk of swelling. There was risk of product displacement, and so difficult to do precise placement, particularly in the nasolabial area, where the fillers could move out into the cheek or into the upper lip area. Juvederm voluma is a good alternative with less hyaluronic acid, 20 mg per ml, and it's a thicker version of Juvederm, does last long. It's good for cheek augmentation, jawline augmentation, chin augmentation. It does have risk of lumpiness. I haven't come across a lot of lumpiness problem. Long-term swelling actually can be an advantage if you're using it for cheek and jawline area and chin area, because that gives more volume. But it has a disadvantage that it's not easy to dissolve with hyaluronidase. So you may have to do multiple sessions of hyaluronidase to dissolve it if you want to dissolve this. But which also means that it is resistant to body hyaluronidase, and therefore it lasts longer. I like these new range of fillers, Juvederm Volbella and Volior, or it's also called as Volift in some part of the world. Volbella is 15 mg per ml and it's softer. It softens the laugh lines, smoker's lines. It's good for lip volume, for youthful plumpiness, or for very superficial injections for acne scarring. It has quite low incidence, but it does have delayed inflammatory nodules after a few months. I haven't come across this at all, but theoretically it is known. Volift or Volior is slightly higher concentration, 17.5 mg, and it's more stiffer and also has less swelling. So it does have lot of application, Volior. I use it in combination with Volbella for around the eyes. So for shallow, I will use Volbella. For deeper, I'll use Volior injections, or I'll use Volior for the lower part of the tear trough under the thick skin, and Volbella on the upper part under the thin skin. So you can combine these two very well to give a good result. Teosyal, I've used it for many years. I like using Teosyal. It does have a predictable long-term benefit. Of course, it does have its own disadvantages as well. Teosyal Kiss is good for lip volume, for lip contour, to rehydrate the lips. Slight risk of lumpiness is there because it retains water. It is more cohesive and viscous, and that's why there's more risk of lumpiness. So it's good to inject people with thicker mucosa or inject deep in the lip, but not for superficial hydration. And it definitely lasts much longer than most other fillers. It has less hypersensitivity reaction because of reduced protein levels. And Teosyal Deep Line and Ultra Deep Line was my favorite for long time. It had 24 milligram per ml. It had higher water absorption and was good for volume, so it lasted very long. And I've seen results last almost a year and a half to 2 years. But I restricted its use in very deep nasolabial fold with thick skin, or cheek enhancement or chin enhancement. But like I said earlier, it has a risk of displacement. So you have to use small boluses of the fillers and not so much volume in the mobile area like peri or ocular areas. Teosyal now has newer range. They're called RH1, 2, 3 and 4. It has patented cross-linking. It has less protein and bacterial endotoxin, so less hypersensitivity and reaction and inflammation. And it has only 20 milligram per ml. So this is the new range, and I guess it's a good range to try for different indications. In belotero group, I like the balance. Like I previously in the previous video told you about balance, that it is low G prime. It is very popular for under eyes. It's not very stiff. There's no risk of lumpiness. There's less risk of discoloration. But of course you need to combine with more volume augmenting fillers. So belotero has other volume augmenting fillers, but I often combine it with either Restylane or with Juvederm to add volume. So in selecting fillers, the key thing is you need to know what are the low G products. Belotero Balance, Juvederm Volbella, Juvederm Volift, or it's also called as Volior, Restylane Refyne, and Teosyal RH1 and 2. So these are low G products. Whereas high G product fillers are Juvederm Voluma, Restylane Sub-Q or Restylane Lyft, Teosyal 3 and 4, or of course Radius fillers. Then remember the cross-linking mechanism. The hyalocross technique, for example, uses higher concentration of hyaluronic acid but has more cross-linking, 6 to 8%. Therefore, although it lasts longer, it has more swelling capacity. So if you want to use volume really and not worried about the swelling factor, then hyalocross technique fillers are good. Whereas Y-cross techniques are smooth and homogeneous with low molecular weight and high molecular weight combination fillers, has less swelling factor and can be safely used in majority of the indications. So Juvederm Volift, like I said, is 17.5 milligram per ml, has less water uptake. It can be injected in subdermal plane, perioral areas, and also vermilion mucosa. Juvederm Volbella is the softest with lowest cohesivity and less water absorption. So it's good for all superficial injections, particularly in the lip for submucosal texture improvement, and even for tear trough you can use this. So now let's see how to select. There are different bases on which you can select the fillers. You can base on skin quality. If the skin is lax and thin, you want fillers which are less visible, which can be easily distributed, has less swelling, and hence you use low G elastic products. For example, such patients with thin skin, you can use it in the nasolabial area, labiomental area, perioral areas. So the choice would be all the low G prime fillers you can use in these conditions. Even deep wrinkles where you have to inject just intradermal or subdermal, you can use these fillers. Then you select based on the plane of injection. If you want deep plane injections like in the cheek or the malar area, in the chin, you use higher G elastic products. If you want to use in superficial plane, you use lower G elastic products like in the glabella, in the nasolabial area, nasolabial crease, labiomental area, cheek creases, periorbital area. If you want more projection over the bones, you need higher G profile fillers. And of course, you can also do layering. You can have higher G elastic products in the deeper layer and lower G elastic products in the superficial layers. Selecting based on specific anatomical location. Glabellar lines. Now it is good to grade the glabellar lines from 0, which is no line, 1 fine lines, and to 5, which is deep furrow without active contraction of the muscle. Obviously, the glabellar lines are a combination of dynamic lines, which is due to muscle overactivity, and eventually to volume loss causing static lines or folds. Now, when you are doing filler for glabellar lines, you need to choose finer particle size, which is easier to flow because of the vascular nature of this region and the risk of vascular injury. So the filler options I prefer is Restylane or Juvederm Ultra XC or Juvederm Volift, which is easy to inject. So what is the plane of injection in the glabellar region? Remember the anatomy, the supratrochlear vessels and transverse nasal vessels in this region, but they are located beneath the corrugator and the frontalis muscles. So they are fairly deep in this region. And the vessels lie directly underneath the crease and the groove. So the best plane to inject is subcutaneous plane to be safe, and I will show you that in the video. This is just an example of a glabellar fold improved by combination of botulinum injection and filler injection. So adding filler in this region has a benefit of prolonging the effect of botulinum. So I've used Juvederm Volift 0.6 ml. Tear trough is slightly different than under-eye circle because under-eye circle is a combination of the problem. Under-eye circle can be due to volume loss causing tear trough, pigmented skin or discolored skin, and venous pooling. So how to grade tear trough? Grade 1 is just the presence of medial groove. Grade 2 is medial and lateral palpebromalar groove. And grade 3 is where the groove extends into the cheek. It's called submalar groove. So how to assess the under eye region or the tear trough problem? This particular patient has typical tear trough deformity, grade 1 or grade 2 with medial groove and palpebromalar groove, but the skin color is normal. The reason for this groove is loss of volume in the anterior cheek, in the infraorbital region or the orbital rim. This patient has a combination of few things. One, hyperpigmented skin. There is additional fat bulge and loss of volume in the anterior maxilla and the orbital rim. This is tear trough deformity in an aging patient who has good volume in the cheek, but there is loss of volume in the infraorbital rim, thinning of the skin and the muscle. This patient has pure pigmentation problem where there is no volume changes or loss, just hyperpigmented skin in the lower eyelid, giving that under eye circle appearance. This patient has combination of hyperpigmented skin, deeply pigmented skin, loss of volume, and the reason for under eye circle is prominent orbital rim with deep set eyes. This is another patient who has under eye circle because of tear trough, loss of volume on the orbital rim and the anterior maxilla, but a significant fat bulge in the lower eyelid. So all of these patients have different problems and filler is not the solution for all of these patients. So what is the plane of injection in the tear trough region? The angular vessels are located medially. In the upper part, they are deep underneath the periosteum. They penetrate the periosteum and lies just underneath the orbicularis muscle. In the middle part of the tear trough is the infraorbital vessel, which is again fairly deep below the orbital rim, initially over the periosteum, and then it penetrates the periosteum to come underneath the surface of facial muscle. Laterally, there is an infraorbital arcade which originates from the infraorbital vessels and runs laterally underneath the orbicularis muscle. So all the vessels are located beneath the muscle, just underneath the surface. So the best plane of injection is either deep supraperiosteal or superficial subdermal. So what are the choices of fillers in tear trough? For mild tear troughs, you need a lower G prime fillers like Volbella and Restylane refyne, particularly for thin skin, because this has less water absorption and hence less risk of swelling and Tyndall effect. But for deeper tear troughs and where the skin is thick, you could use higher G prime like Restylane silk. Sometimes you can combine both the fillers, in the upper part lower G prime and in the lower part a higher G prime, and again I will show you that in the future. In this patient you will see the tear trough deformity is associated with a tight retaining ligament that causes a band. A simple injection of filler injection does not solve the problem. So filler can be used to improve this condition, but the technique involves using cannula in a surgical way to go perpendicular and break the retaining ligament and simultaneously inject the filler. So that's an example of filler injection using a cannula technique in a surgical way to dissect the retaining ligament and inject the fillers. This is grade 2 tear trough deformity. How would you inject in that? You would inject at the point 3, you inject a thicker or higher G prime filler which is deep plane. So I've used Restylane lyft here, 0.5 ml, and then for zone A, zone 1 and 2, you use a lower G prime filler which is thinner, and it is injected just supraperiosteal, and I have used Restylane refyne, just 0.3 ml in this area. I always prefer to undercorrect the periorbital area because it does gain volume over a period of time, even though Restylane does not cause a lot of water retention, but usually undercorrection serves better than overcorrection. This is tear trough deformity with fat bulge and mild hyperpigmentation. If there is a bulge present, you need to be very careful, and I have used Teosyal Rh density, which is a low G prime filler, 0.5 ml on each side on the anterior or the orbital rim area. Now this is the very classical indication for surgery, blepharoplasty, but if the patient is not ready for the blepharoplasty, you could use some filler below the bulge by carefully injecting just over the orbital rim, and that could camouflage the eye bags. So it was corrected using Teosyal Rh density, 0.5 ml on each side. In this patient you will see this tear trough grade 1 with very thin skin and light skin. So there is high chance of swelling and Tyndall effect. So I have used Restylane refyne, just 0.5 ml on each side, going only on the orbital rim area, building up the cheek, and that's the result after the filler. This is the patient with hyperpigmented skin and tear trough and sunken eyes. So I've just used 0.5 ml Restylane deep supraperiosteal over the periorbital rim, medially and laterally. Obviously she will need skin treatment to correct the pigmented skin. So the cheekbones, the filler can be done in the anterior part, the middle part, and the lateral part. Now in these patients, you will see there's slight deficiency in the anterior part of the cheekbone, which contributes to tear trough. This patient has overall hypoplasia of the maxilla, but the anterior part contributes to the tear trough deformity. Now these are typical example of mid-cheek deficiency of both bone and soft tissue. In this particular patient, there is deficiency of soft tissue and the bone, causing bulging of the and folding of the skin in the nasolabial region. And in this patient, there is just deficiency of the soft tissue, maybe with mild deficiency of the bone, causing tear trough extending into the submalar region. And placing the filler in this zone underneath the cheek skin, thick skin, can improve this depression. The point of caution here is the infraorbital vessel, so you need to be superficial, just subcutaneous. So this is this patient with anterior cheek deficiency causing lax skin in the nasolabial area and deepening of the nasolabial fold. So I've corrected using Teosyal deep line into the anterior cheek area, placing it subcutaneously, and in the nasolabial area again placing it subcutaneously. The lateral part of the cheekbone typically contributes to the famous OG curve, and again that can be improved using filler injection. For example, in this patient you can see she has deficiency of anterior cheek, middle cheek, and the lateral cheek or the zygoma. So the fillers are placed in all of these three areas. So the way it is corrected in the medial cheek area, which is the most mobile area, you need volume enhancement, and Restylane lift or Juvederm volift is a good product. It can be used using needle method, being just subcutaneous plain. The lateral cheek generally needs more lift than the lower face, so it requires a higher G prime and particle size filler that will help structure and support the zygoma. So products like Juvederm Voluma, Restylane Lift, or even Ultra XC can be used with cannula technique. So in this patient, I've used 1 ml on each side, placing 0.5 ml over the zygomatic arch and 0.5 ml distributed in the middle or the medial cheek. Nasolabial fold can also be graded according to the severity, and in grade 1 you will see there is deficiency of only the upper third of the nasolabial fold. In grade 2 the deficiency is in the upper third and the middle third of the nasolabial fold. Grade 3 it is upper third, middle third, little bit of lower third with excess skin, and grade 4 it's predominantly excess skin along with volume loss that can extend right into the marionette region or the labiomental region. So the treatment should be according to the severity of the nasolabial fold. So upper part of the nasolabial fold has a deep piriform space. This is called restore space, and it offers because of combination of fat and bone loss. Whereas the middle and lower part, it is often deep crease or a superficial wrinkle. And again, it's combination of fat volume loss, zygomaticus overactivity as well, and mild skin sagging. So the critical part of injecting nasolabial fold is understanding the vascular architecture here. The upper nasolabial region has facial vessels, which is deep to the orbicularis oris, and it comes out in the medium plane in the perialar region, but still runs under nasalis muscle towards the inner canthus. Whereas in the mid and the lower nasolabial, it is just underneath the orbicularis oris muscle, and about 15 to 17 millimeter lateral to the modulus, it is more superficial in the SMAS layer. So in the upper third, which is the restore space, you need to find a particle filler which is easy to flow. So that makes it easier for you to inject with less risk. And the plane of injection, either it could be deep supraperiosteal just over the piriform space, or superficial subdermal. And the products options are Restylane, Juvederm Ultra XC, or Juvederm Volure XC. The middle and the lower third, because it's a mobile area, and there is because of combination of skin displacement, of skin sagging and fat displacement, an intermediate G product is good option here. For example, Juvederm Volift or Volure, injected in the sub. So for this patient, you will see deep upper third of the nasolabial fold and a crease in the lower part. I've used Teosyal Ultra Deep here by placing deep supraperiosteal in this region, upper part of the region, and very superficial in the lower part, subcutaneous region, and that's just 0.5 ml on each side. On the contrary, if the nasolabial area has just a crease, which is often due to the dynamic activity of the muscle, either you could give tiny amount of Botox in this region to soften that, but you have to be very careful, or you can do filler injection with a thin G prime filler in a subcutaneous plane. So Restylane 0.5 ml was injected, and that improves the nasolabial crease. Again, a patient with grade 2 nasolabial fold, deep upper third, medium depth middle third. I've used combination of fillers in the nasolabial region itself and in the cheek, because he has some associated anterior cheek flatness. So I've used 1 ml each of Teosyal deep lines to correct both these areas. And the technique I've used here is use of needle, just injecting subcutaneously in the anterior cheek area and subcutaneously in the nasolabial area, and that's after the use of 1 ml of filler on each side. The labiomental fold or the marionette line is a bit more challenging to correct with the fillers, and again, if you grade them, they can be mild, which is just a visible fold or indentation at the modulus or downturned angle of mouth, and it gets deeper and extends almost down to the prejaw area. So from slight fold to fold extending to the prejaw sulcus. Again, it is combination of volume loss, and the volume loss is more medially here in the chin area or the periorbicularis area, and skin sagging in the lower face. So that's an example of a patient with grade 2 labiomental sulcus. 0.5 ml Juvederm voluma has been injected in deep subcutaneous around the angle of the mouth and around the chin area to lift the labiomental fold. A word of caution again, this is a no-go zone because any filler in this area could cause aggravation of the fold. So it is mostly injected medial to the fold. The full face restructuring can also be done using fillers, but you need to understand the pathology. This is of course a middle-aged lady with loss of volume, displacement and excess skin sagging, whereas this is a slightly younger lady with more of volume loss than skin sagging. So if you carefully analyze, there is volume loss in the infraorbital region, there is volume displacement into the nasolabial fold. So the volume loss is in the tear trough extending into the submalar region, and this is volume displacement causing the fold. This is volume loss medial to the nasolabial fold, excess skin in the nasolabial region and in the labiomental region. There is excess fat here in the jaw and prejaw sulcus with deficiency in volume here. Same thing in this patient. So the technique of injection or replacing the volume is all of these volume loss or deficit areas in the periorbital area, submalar area, sometimes even the premesenteric area, the nasolabial area, the labiomental area. So we will see this example for filler correction. A patient with volume loss in the periorbital region, submalar region, nasolabial region and labiomental region. So that's the nasolabial area, grade 3 almost. That's the periorbital area with deficiency in the tear trough region, submalar area and lateral palpebromalar sulcus, and in the labiomental region with deficiency medial to the labiomental fold, and some deficiency in the cheek area and deficiency in the chin area. So I've used Restylane refyne and lyft. Refyne for periorbital region and lyft for the rest of the areas, and that's immediately after the injection, correction of all of these washer volume deficiency areas. Now this is overall pretty lady who just wanted some enhancement of the facial structure and some lip enhancement. So I've injected Teosyal Rh density 2 into the tear trough region and the lateral palpebromalar region. Teosyal deep lines to enhance the malar region using cannula technique. Temporal hollowing was corrected using Teosyal deep lines, again using cannula technique. And Teosyal kiss to do contouring of the lip. As she had good volume, I just improved the contour with the filler, and that was the correction achieved with the fillers. So this is the patient with volume loss and skin sagging who ideally would be a fit candidate for facelift surgery but wanted some improvement only with fillers. So I've used a fine filler Restylane using needle technique in the periorbital region and in the chin area or the labiomental region. And I've used Teosyal deep lines using cannula for the cheek bones, the mesenteric area and the nasolabial area using needles. And that's the correction after the filler. Now, how to correct the perioral lines? Perioral lines can be dynamic lines, which is because of movement of orbicularis and appears only when the patient whistles, but it can be static lines as well, or like vertical barcodes. Because it's a very dynamic area, you need to carefully place fillers because of risk of unnatural appearance, filler displacement, lumpiness. So if the lines are not corrected on stretching the skin, then you need to place the filler right into the crease, very small quantity. You can use slightly higher G' fillers like Restylane Silk or even Rh density 2, just puncturing with the needle underneath the crease and infiltrating in the dermis to stretch the dermis in that particular area. But if you see the lines disappear on stretching, then you could use low G' fillers, which is Volbella, very carefully placing along the lip contour and just subcutaneously in the areas of these vertical lines. Lip is a very popular area and common area for fillers, though it is simple, but it's very tricky, sensitive area. So you need to understand it properly. So to understand the volume, the shape, the contour, and the quality of the mucosa, you need to assess all of these elements. And I will show you how to do this. So let's say this example, you see the vertical height of the lip on each side of the midline. This often tells you the length of the upper lip and also if there is any asymmetry in the upper lip. Then you look at the vertical height of the vermilion or the volume of the lip. Again, we'll also show you asymmetries in the upper lip or the lower lip as well. Then you look at the filtral column, how developed and wide they are, the Cupid's bow and the white row. Then the dry vermilion and the wet vermilion. Then you examine the modulus of the lip, and finally you assess the symmetry of the region. Let's analyze the lip. Let's see very closely what you see the lip as in this patient and in this patient. Now if you go systematically, you will see what you identify. So look at the vertical height of the upper lip on this side and the vertical height of the upper lip on this side. you will see that vertically the lip is longer on this side than on this side, as compared to this patient where the vertical height of the lip is symmetrical and shorter than this patient. Then you look at the vertical height of the vermilion on this side and vertical height of vermilion on this side. You will see that there is deficiency of volume here, or the vertical height is less than on this side, whereas the vertical height in this particular patient is good and equal. Now here, if you try to increase the volume by injecting filler in this part, you will end up having more longer upper lip. So that's why this assessment is very important, and I will show you how to correct this problem. Then you assess at the philtral column how narrow or wide it is and what is the shape of the philtral cusp or sulcus. Then you look at the Cupid's bow. In this patient you saw it is very well formed, whereas in this patient it's very short despite the fact that philtral column is wide. Then you look at the white roll. Here the white roll, it's more concave in the lateral part and convex in the medial part, and here it's completely convex all around and well formed. Of course it doesn't have a very distinguished Cupid's bow and Cupid's height in this patient. Then you look at the dry vermilion. So it's quite wrinkled with vertical lines. Dry vermilion also is dry, flaky and chapped, and the wet vermilion is more visible in this patient than in this patient. Then you look at the modulus angle. The angle is slightly more downturned in this patient and slightly upturned in this patient, and this is upturned because of the long vertical lip here. So finally you know the symmetry of the whole lip, the lower lip as well, the modulus and rest of the lip structure. Now let's see this patient. When you quickly analyze, you see a lot of asymmetry, but if you closely analyze, you will see the vertical height of the upper lip on this side is longer as compared to this side. The vertical height of the vermilion is shorter here as compared to this side. If you draw a vertical line here, you will see that this lower lip has a longer vermilion than this side of the lower lip. She does not have a very well formed white roll. She has a good Cupid's bow and a reasonably good philtral column. So vertical height of the upper lip is very important to assess before you do the fillers. So we have analyzed the philtral column, the Cupid's bow, the white roll, the dry vermilion, the wet vermilion, look at the modulus, and finally look at the symmetry not only of the lip but of the whole face. So for filler lips, there are different ways of doing filler lips. One is purely contouring, where the filler is placed along the contour, enhancing the white roll in the upper lip and the lower lip. And this can be done using low G prime finer fillers like Volbella, using only needle, because Volbella is more soft, natural looking, and it feels soft. Or it can be used for mucosal rejuvenation with lot of wrinkled and chappy mucosa. So obviously here the filler options are Volbella, Juvederm Volbella, that's used using needle, and it gives a good natural hydrated and augmented look to the lip. Then you do volume enhancement just to build up the shape and structure of the lip. For this you need thicker fillers like Ultra XC or Voluma or even Volbella using needle technique. You could always use cannula as well. These fillers often have good water retention for volume and longevity. So this patient, she has good volume, but what she needs is basically rejuvenation of the mucosa and some enhancement of the white roll and the Cupid's bow, and that's immediately after the filler, with mucosal improvement, some volume enhancement and contouring of the lip. So overall keeps it natural. This patient, she already has enhanced white roll using a tattoo, and of course she has aging mucosa, but the volume is pretty good. So again, the filler is used for contouring and for enhancement of the mucosa, and I have injected more in the lower lip than in the upper lip. So another indication for filler is in the nose. It is being called as now medical rhinoplasty, but I would use fillers only specifically to correct the dorsum or augment the dorsum, to some extent augment the tip for contour correction and particularly post rhinoplasty correction. So to understand the plane of injection in the nose, you need to understand the vascular supply of the nose and the level of the blood vessels. The dorsal nasal vessel and the LR vessel is just superficial to the SMAS. So that's why you see in rhinoplasty you are able to excise the SMAS, and sometimes you expose these vessels. So the plane of injection should be deeper than SMAS. The columellar vessel, although it is deeper between the medial crus, remember it's a closed compartment, and the filler injection in this area needs to be very careful. Over injection can cause compression of the blood vessel and reduced vascular supply to the tip. So it's within the SMAS, and the injection sites are always in the midline because the vessels are on either side. They are supraperiosteal or deep enough. They are supraperichondrial in the midvault region, and they are in the deep plane between the domes or the medial crus. This is an example of correction of contour after rhinoplasty deformity. Now, using fillers for jawline, there are two areas in the jawline: the posterior jawline or the angle of the jaw, where you can use high G prime fillers like Juvederm, voluma, either with a cannula or a needle, and the depth of injection could be deep or subcutaneous. Usually the better results are visible with subcutaneous injection than with deep injection. With deep injection you need to use a large volume to show a dramatic improvement. Then the anterior jawline, which is the pre-jawal sulcus area, is highly mobile area, so you need to be careful injecting here because it could displace the filler. Juvederm volure or volift is a good option here with a cannula, and again in the subcutaneous plane. An example of patients here, this is anterior and the posterior jawline has been filled with Teosyal deep lines, 1.5 ml on one side, and that's her after the injection. And this is just the vertical ramus injection to enhance the vertical ramus and a part of the horizontal ramus. So Teosyal deep lines, 1 ml injected in the subcutaneous plane. This is again vertical ramus and angle of the jaw corrected using Juvederm voluma, 1 ml on each side. This is a patient who already has a good jawline and chin, but she has a projected chin because of absence of gonial angle. So with the filler I've created a gonial angle to give a more angulated appearance to the lower mandible, and I have injected in the chin to improve the vertical height of the chin. So I've used total Juvederm voluma 3 ml. So just few basic tips on using fillers. Of course, very important to have aseptic preparation, particularly remove the makeup entirely because this could be the risk of contamination of the filler area. Use topical anesthetics. You could use local anesthesia and blocks. Proper lighting is important. Inject in semi-reclining position so the blood vessels are less distended or engorged, and use magnification. So the depth of the filler injection, it could be just very superficial, just underneath the epidermis for fine lines and creases. It could be inside the dermis or just subdermis, and the penetration is 15-degree angle, or it could be deep subcutaneous or supraperiosteal with a 45-degree angle penetration. Always counter traction the skin for easy penetration so you don't drag the skin while injecting. And how do you know that there is correctly placed filler? If it is intradermal, you see blanching of POD orange. If it is subdermal, you see visible papule, which you can press and massage. If it is subcutaneous, you see visible filling effect. If it is supraperiosteal, you see lifting effect. You could use either needle or cannula. Again, how do you deposit the filler? It could be serial puncture with the needle in the form of droplets. It could be linear threading either with the needle or with the cannula. So you insert the cannula, the needle, and then withdraw and keep injecting. This is often done in the deeper plane. Fanning technique. Fanning technique is injecting along a radius of 180 degrees to uniformly inject in the plane, or it could be cross hatching, which is perpendicular to each other. Filler could be over correction or under correction. It's always preferred to do under correction. You can always go back after 1 week, 10 days to do a touch up or further correction. Pressure is applied after the injection to prevent bruising. Massage should be gentle only if you want to displace the filler. Otherwise, excessive massage can displace the filler significantly. Ice application is important to prevent bruising. Avoid vascular penetration, and I will show you the technique while injecting fillers how to do that. Post-procedure instructions: avoid exposure to extreme heat or cold, avoid strenuous exercise, sleep with head elevated, avoid makeup or skincare products for next 24 hours, give them warning signs when to come back, follow up after 1 week for any touch-up. Finally, when you're doing filler, you can assess the response either using a wrinkle severity rating score or a global aesthetic improvement scale. And in either of these, it is either extremely good result, which is score 1, or worsening the area, or score 5. So from here on, we move on to the video of the filler. Enjoy the videos. Alright, Suzy, so tell me what's bothering you. Just point me out.
The creases around here.
Yep.
And up here is needs lifting up a bit.
Okay.
And I have these lines up here, but I don't think fillers will help that.
Fillers doesn't help that.
No.
Yeah. When was the last time you had, say, Botox or fillers?
January.
January of this year?
Yes.
Okay. What was that, a filler?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
And where was the fillers put? Same place here?
No, she did up here.
There. Okay.
Yeah, and then Botox around
Do you
here.
remember what kind of filler?
No, I don't remember.
Hyaluronic acid, any
No.
particular name? No.
No.
Okay, no mind. That's okay. How's your health generally?
Good.
Any medical history at all?
No.
Okay. Any allergies that you are aware of?
No.
Are you on any medications?
No.
No. Okay. How about your weight? Are you fluctuating in your weight?
No.
No.
It's pretty much stable.
How's your sun exposure?
Good.
Normal?
Yeah, normal.
Excessive?
Yeah.
Normal.
A little excessive,
Little
maybe.
excessive. Okay. What kind of skincare products do you use?
Just general, not Clarins or anything like that.
Say moisturizer?
Yeah, just a normal.
Sunblock, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Any smoking?
Social smoker.
Social smoking. Okay. All right. Let me have a look now. Okay. Well, we'll start with the top part of the face.
Mm-hmm.
If you see, your brow is pretty good. The forehead doesn't show some static lines in this position, and this is very strange actually. Normally we get lines horizontally. Okay.
Yeah.
Now these are probably because of the way you sleep.
Right. We had this conversation.
Yeah,
before.
we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
I don't. Is there anything
No,
to
you
do
can-
to get rid of these?
Lift your brow up. Yeah. I mean, Botox is definitely not going to help.
No, I know.
Botox will relax this muscle. Relax again. I think improving the quality of the skin can improve that. Let's say, we could, by doing some laser, a Frexel laser is an option.
Mm-hmm.
Doing peel is an option. Maybe doing a very fine thin fillers in the lines, like a mesotherapy,
Right.
could help stretch that. But I can't assure you. I can't promise you that it will improve. It
Because
could
I've got
probably
two
reduce
coming down here as well
as
now.
well. Yeah.
Can
Okay.
you see them?
Yeah, I see one here.
Yeah.
Give him a smile, big smile. Okay. All right. So this part, I think for these lines, if you want to improve these lines, my first choice would be CO2 flexor laser. Okay? It will improve the texture of the skin and maybe improve these lines. Second would be filler injection, but a different kind of filler injection, very superficial, like a mesotherapy.
Right.
Okay. So that, I think these two would help. Now just frown for me. Yeah, this is Botox. The muscles are not too bad here actually.
Yeah, because when I had
bad.
Botox in January,
Okay, so the
I was
probably is
expecting that to disappear.
Yeah.
It didn't, but you can see around here as well.
That's right, yeah.
And I've had quite a lot of Botox, and it should get better. So I feel that it was cheap treatment.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you need strong Botox in this area.
Yes.
Here, to reduce these dynamic lines.
Yes.
So you do have some static lines as well. Static lines means when you don't smile, you see those lines.
Yeah.
Okay? And again, the option for the static lines, again, the first option I would say is CO2 flexor laser. That can help to shrink the skin, tighten the skin,
Yes.
and also kind of exfoliate the skin so
Right.
the lines look less.
And what's the
Or
process for
peel.
that?
Flexor laser is it takes about 20-25 minute treatment. It's done for the whole face. You apply some numbing cream like you did now, okay? And the laser is like dots of shower of laser. So it's like tuck 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 tuck. Okay? So it does two benefits. One is since it penetrates deeper, it contracts the skin and it stimulates the collagen. Second thing is it peels the skin in the next 4-5 days time. So after the treatment, you look like you've had sunburn. Okay? It looks dull, dark, and feels rough. It does cause some swelling first 1 or 2 days.
Yes.
Then it starts peeling off. It takes about 4 or 5 days to peel off. After 4 or 5 days, the skin looks pink.
Right.
It looks very sensitive.
Yes.
That's when you need to protect the skin from sun and
Yeah.
apply some sunblock and things. And then the redness goes away. The benefit you get is you feel the tightness. There will be some amount of collagen that causes tightness, and the texture improves. So the fine lines improve, the sunspot, the freckles improve. To give a bit of shininess to the skin. Same thing can be achieved to some extent by peeling, chemical peel, which is slightly done in a different way, in that we apply a solution after cleaning the skin that causes burning sensation. We put a lot of ice. It turns red within an hour or so. Then it becomes tight like a mask in next 2 to 3 days. It becomes very tight. It starts cracking.
Right.
And then the skin starts peeling off. So it's
Okay.
about 5-6 days process.
Yes.
Sometimes at some places peel work better than flexor laser. The advantage of flexor laser is it doesn't actually, you don't see the skin peel off, so it doesn't look ugly, it doesn't look too bad like a peel can sometimes. And you have an option of putting a lot of concealer and go out. You can still go out with flexor laser. With peel you are indoors, you're stuck
Yes.
indoors for 4 or 5 days.
Yes.
So you can't go out.
Okay.
Okay. Now you do have good tone here actually. You haven't lost a lot of tone. So there's not much sagging, but you have lost volume.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's some volume loss in what you call suborbital area here. Some volume loss in the cheek area here or the malar area. There's a little bit of laxity in this one. This is part which is supposed to be up there.
Yeah.
So it's slightly dropped down, and that causes this fold.
Right.
So this is because of some volume loss here, and also because of a bit of laxity here. Okay. So I think obviously we are not doing anything to, maybe the filler that we add here will help lift this,
Yes.
and a little bit filler in this will be a good combination to improve that
Yes.
area.
Yeah.
Smile. Now when you smile, we do see these lines, okay?
Yeah.
And they are slightly different than these lines because these are not directly due to the muscle that is inserted on the skin. So doing a Botox here will not benefit these lines.
Yeah.
If you give a lot of Botox, it could improve that, but you won't be able to smile, and that's not a very natural
No,
procedure.
no,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
Botox is not an option for these. Again, the peeling or the laser could improve the quality of the skin here. Now coming down here, you have very little jowl here. Good jawline. A little bit of fat. Probably it has displaced from here to the lower part. There are two options for these. One is when we do the laser or the peel, it would help tighten the skin, or you could add a little bit of filler in this area. so that
Okay.
notch goes away and gives us uniform, smooth
Okay.
appearance here. So that's a good option there. And look at your neck. Just relax now. Relax your neck. Relax.
So I've got some lines underneath here. Can you see? But they're not really that
They're not-
visible.
yeah,
I mean, they're
not
there.
Visible. Just down. Yeah. Okay. And when you flex the neck, you'll see these lines here.
Yeah.
Okay. Relax now. So there is a bit of tone loss in this. Not again excessive, but it's a little bit of elasticity lost in this area. And
Would that be from weight loss? Yeah, because I used to be,
Oh, okay. How
heavier.
much have you lost?
I don't know, but I used to be a lot heavier.
Oh, okay.
2 sizes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's,
I mean, it's over the years.
Yeah.
It's not recent, but I think it's from
So
that.
that's partly because
Yeah.
of that. So I think what we'll do now is we'll put some filler in this area here. I'm going to use filler called voluma. The advantage of this is it stays longer.
Great.
Okay, and it gives volume effect that will lift the part of mid-face. After this, we'll see how this looks.
Yes.
Okay. If need be, then I'll give you a different filler which is not as thick as voluma.
Yes.
Like a deep line, Teosyal deep line in this area to fill that out.
Okay, perfect.
And then we assess how it looks. You see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay? Are you using any topical creams like vitamin A or retin-A cream?
No.
Vitamin C? I would
No.
recommend you retin-A cream.
Okay.
Retin-A is good. It does cause micro peeling and causes a bit of
Okay.
tightening effect. It's a simple cream, not very expensive like La Prairie and all of those things.
Yeah.
But it really works very well. So that would be a good skincare.
Yes.
Maybe some vitamin C would help. That will prevent further creasing
Yes.
of the skin.
Yeah, because
So
I
that
don't
would be
want
good
it
too.
getting any worse.
So I'll try it out.
Okay, perfect.
Alright?
Yeah.
So I'm going to mark the areas where I'm going to use the fillers. So this is the cheekbone that I have marked. I've marked the nasolabial fold, the depth, and I'm marking the superficial creases. Then I give local anesthesia to only the injection port because I'm going to use a cannula. It's not a good idea to give extensive local anesthesia because that itself causes swelling. So I've just injected the port site. I'm using a 25 gauge needle very carefully without causing bleeding. Make a port site and then use a 25G cannula. Gradually, gently, just wriggle it into a deep plane, just supraperiosteal. So I'm going to pinch the malar tissue with my finger to ensure that I am just above the periosteum. A gentle wriggle allows it to be less traumatic and less painful, and subsequently the swelling is less. So once you have reached to the distalmost point where you want to inject, then you start injecting small quantity, ensuring with the other finger that the placement is correct, and then gradually withdrawing the cannula and injecting it. I inject in a radial fashion, starting from the superior border, going all over the anterior border up to the lower border of the zygomatic arch. So I'm injecting about 0.5 ml of the filler. I'm using a high G prime to give me more volume and projection in the cheek. Usually one attempt should be good enough to place your filler. This minimizes trauma and post-operative swelling. Similarly on the other side, a needle prick, a gentle wiggle movement. Make sure it is placed deep, and then placing the filler above the periosteum. Then make the patient sit up and assess the symmetry and volume. After assessment, I will add 0.2 ml more, particularly where there is a tear trough deformity or submalar depression. Similarly on the other side, just additional 0.1, 0.2 ml. Then I will inject the nasolabial region. I will use a needle technique. Now I am placing the filler deep just above the periosteum in the upper part of the nasolabial area, which is deep, and my direction of the needle is more medially. In the lower part of the nasolabial fold, I am injecting very superficial, just subdermally. Now the key to prevent intravascular damage or injection is to be gentle, slow, and inject very small quantity. So in the upper part of the nasolabial fold, it is pre-periosteal. In the lower part, it is subcutaneous. And then I make the patient sit up and assess. Now I am correcting fine line using very thin filler. These are radial creases that some patients get on smiling in the cheek region. The key here is to just inject a droplet of filler in the crease or in the subdermal area to stretch the dermis. Avoid injecting linear deposits as it may cause a sausage shaped lump eventually. Ask the patient to smile to see the direction of the line and just inject it intradermally or subdermally, small quantity. This is correction of periorbital fine lines. I'm using a very thin filler material, just injecting in the superficial plane underneath the line, and a tiny aliquot of filler will help improve these fine lines and wrinkles. This is the before and after of that patient. Just focus on the fine line, how it is corrected by placing intradermally. Alright, so we're going to work on the glabellar fold. Now if you see, she has a very small depression when she is not animating and a very mild depression here. Now frown, can you frown? When she frowns, this gets deepened. So there are two things that we work on this. One is giving Botox injection to relax the muscle and then to fill glabellar lines. Now only Botox injection, if you give, it will reduce the dynamic line, but this line will persist. So what happens is the use of Botox becomes more and needs more frequently, because once the Botox starts weaning off, it starts showing very quickly. So if you combine a little bit of filler with a little bit of Botox, the effect of Botox will stay much longer. So I will show you how these areas are injected. Second area we're going to improve is, you can see the lower part of the face where there's a little bit of laxity here. So I'm going to do fillers in this zone in the cheek area to get some tightening. This is more of biostimulation, so we get some tightening. It is not volume enhancement. Same thing on this side. Just to lift this up, I will inject fillers in a very superficial layer in this place to get the lift. Okay, so we are going to focus on the glabellar line here. Now remember, the supratrochlear vessel is right underneath the crease and the supraorbital vessel is at the mid-pupillary level. So to supratrochlear, and this area is deep, it's underneath the muscles. So the technique to inject is to pinch the skin and lift the skin up. And then injection is very superficial. And then gentle massage. Again, very superficial, just underneath the skin. That's it. Same thing on this side. Just pinch the skin and just subcutaneous. I'm injecting just 0.1 ml in the upper part and 0.1 ml in the lower part. and that's it. So for this procedure, I'm going to use a 27 gauge cannula and inject just subdermis to get some plumpiness on the skin to allow it to lift up. Now where to place the port? So I will check how far I want to reach, and then I will make a decision to make a port in this area here. Okay. You can see this is superficial. You can gently glide in, just like this. So this is very superficial, and then I'm going to inject in a radial fashion. That's it. And just gently spread the filler. That's it on this side. So again, on the left side of the cheek, I will find the position for the port from where I can reach the whole area, and this is that port point. So I use a 26 gauge needle and very gently create the port. If you cannot find the port, you can just gently squeeze in to see the blood spot. If you try to go in this way, you will not be able to enter. If you go this way, you will not be able to enter. So the best angle is 45 degrees. There you are. And you gradually advance. There. And then inject. Okay, that's done. This video shows tear trough correction performed by Dr. Hardik Ganatra using a cannula technique. Dr. Hardik Ganatra is a specialist plastic surgeon who's specialized in facial rejuvenation. After a needle puncture with 26G, a cannula is inserted, which is 27G, carefully placed underneath the muscle over the periosteum. It is guided with the other hand, and then the filler is placed in small quantities in a retrograde fashion just underneath the muscle over the infraorbital rim. After the placement, it is gently massaged to spread the filler and to avoid lumpiness. This is another angle to show the direction of the cannula, which is towards the medial part of the infraorbital rim. The cannula insertion needs to be very gentle with a gentle wriggle, avoiding any thrusting movement. Other side, a close-up view to show the direction of the cannula, penetration of the cannula, negotiation underneath the muscle, and then tiny aliquots of filler are placed as you withdraw the cannula. Usually about 0.01 ml is injected as each aliquot, and maybe about 0.1 to 0.2 ml for medial part of the tear trough. The tip here is the injection amount should be such that you should not see any bulge. The medial most part of the tear trough I prefer to inject with a needle, so that gives a precise placement, and it could be at multiple level. It could be slightly deep under the muscle and a little bit underneath the subcutaneous tissue. Be aware that the vein travels just very close to this part of the tear trough. Remember, the vessel is located above the orbicularis muscle. In such patient, usually 0.5 to 0.6 ml is enough on both the sides, and I prefer to wait for about a couple of weeks before injecting any further. This is another tear trough fillers using needle technique by Dr. Mazen Arafa, specialist plastic surgeon and expert in facial fillers. So he's using needle and carefully placing it underneath the muscle, gradually inserting it, ensuring that he pulls the skin with his left hand. The movement has to be very slow and gentle. You can see the maneuver of the needle where he is going up to the bone and slowly withdrawing it and then going above the periosteum to inject small aliquots of fillers. A very gentle movement and a very tiny injection prevents intravascular injection of fillers. After the placement of fillers, gently massage to spread the filler over the infraorbital rim. Do you need to withdraw the plunger to see if there is intravascular penetration? In my opinion, when you withdraw, it's a two-hand movement, and often you don't get blood even if you are intravascular, because it collapses the vein when you create a negative pressure, and secondly, it breaks the filler gel in the syringe, and then you have air bubble in that and it becomes difficult to inject. So the key is to use magnification under the light to see for vessels which is mainly in the medial part, and then do gentle injection with small aliquots to prevent problems. If the vein is big enough or the needle enters the artery, there will be a little blood that will pool into the snub of the needle, and if you see that, you stop injecting and you change the position of the needle. So again, coming back, very gentle placement, 0.01 ml at each aliquots, about 0.2 cc in the medial part and about 0.2 cc in the lateral part is good enough for correction of the tear trough. This is nasolabial correction using fillers, and this is a grade 1 nasolabial fold with a deep depression in the upper third region. This is a fanning technique with small aliquots in the subcutaneous plane. The facial vessels are deeper than the subcutaneous plane within the SMAS layer in this region. The middle third of the nasolabial region is injected very superficial in a linear fashion just underneath the crease, and then a gentle massage to distribute the filler. Similarly, the lower third of the nasolabial crease is also a superficial injection. This is injecting the labiomental fold, again a fanning technique in the subcutaneous region. This is the other side of the nasolabial fold, upper third, fanning technique in subcutaneous plane, and an amount of about 0.2 to 0.3 cc is enough to give a good fullness without lumpiness. Then the middle third, very superficial, just about 0.1 ml of filler placement. The lower third, subcutaneous, again a small quantity. So usually about 0.5 ml on each side is good enough for a good nasolabial correction in grade 1 nasolabial fold. This is labiomental injection, small quantity in a radial fashion. So that was before the filler, grade 1 tear trough and nasolabial fold. and this is immediately after the filler. Total volume used is just 1 ml filler on both the sides. This is filler lip for a patient with asymmetrical lip, and listen to the conversation Dr. Hardik has with the patient while he is performing.
It has a little more volume than this side. You want to have a look? Sister, mirror please.
You think this side has more volume?
Yeah, okay, could you sit for me please?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a look at this, do you see this
Yeah.
thickness and see this thickness?
But why do I feel this is more flatter than this?
This is flatter. Flatter is the contour, is the shape.
Oh, okay, so I don't
The
like
shape and volume is different. So
Okay.
this is flatter. This is more curvaceous,
yeah.
while this is thicker, slightly thicker, while this is less thicker. First, I'm going to focus on the on the volume.
Okay.
So I'll fill a little more here and a little less here just to balance it out. Okay, I do appreciate the fact that this side is, yes, of course there are no fillers here. So yeah, this side is thicker than this side. So first I'll inject this side and try and make it even. After that I'll start again. You get the point, right? So
Yeah,
first
yeah.
we'll even it out and then we'll start again.
Okay.
So this is the M point, okay, or the bow and the arrow concept. This is the bow, and these are two arrows. Okay, so that's for the contour, right?
This is the needle technique for injecting fillers in the lip, and here he is injecting deep in the intramuscular layer. A very gentle introduction of the needle and slow injection by withdrawing the needle out and placing small quantity of filler in the intramuscular region. So he started injecting in the lateral part of the right side of the upper lip, then in the middle part of the upper lip. So each side about 0.1 ml is injected. Again same in the intramuscular plane with gradual withdrawal technique. Then injecting the central tubercle of the lip. The bimanual pinching allows proper placement of needle in the superficial depth of the orbicularis muscle. The labial artery is on the wet side of the upper lip, underneath the mucosa over the orbicularis muscle. Now he is injecting on the other side, on the left side of the lip, the middle third, about 0.1 ml intramuscular injection. Gentle needle introduction, gentle injection. And then he is injecting the lateral part of the left side of the lip. So far he has injected about 0.4 ml in the upper lip. After completing the upper lip, assess by asking the patient to sit up, show her the mirror so she can see the changes, and explain to her what you may further do to increase the volume. This will ensure that the patient does not suddenly see an enlarged lip which she may or may not like.
Of course, people have the different perceptions of beauty, but it's not even 1 to 1.6 right now. I mean, it's more than that. It's almost 1:2, so I can still add a little more volume in the upper lip.
That's fine.
So on mutual agreement, Dr. Hardik decided to add some more filler in the upper lip, distributing the filler in small quantities and very gently massaging the upper lip. Ensure do not aggressively massage the lip because it could cause rupture of the veins, hematoma or severe swelling. Then the lower lip is injected using the same manual by pinching the lip between thumb and index of left hand and injecting with the right hand, placing the needle into the muscular layer and injecting small quantities. After injecting the lower lip on both the sides, make the patient sit up again to assess, and then you can finally tweak by injecting at different places to make sure it is as symmetrical as possible. The final part of the injection is in the cupid's bow and sometimes in the philtral column to create that M or double bow and double arrow appearance. And this is just into the white roll subcutaneously and a very tiny quantity. It's probably less than 0.1 ml on each side. So that's the cupid's bow injected on both the sides. You can see a tiny quantity is being injected and a small quantity is injected into the philtral column. And that's the before and after. You can see the significant asymmetry of the lips that has been significantly corrected using 1 ml of filler. This is another technique of filler injection, generally just enhancing the upper and the lower lip. For a patient who already has a good volume, she has had previous filler injections. So I'm generally injecting in the lower lip, in the central part of the lower lip, and this is more submucosal filler using a low G prime filler. The lower lip is generally unforgivable. So even if it is a bit more in volume, it does not look too awkward, unlike the upper lip where an excess volume can make it look very, very prominent. This is yet another filler patient where I'm just rejuvenating the lip. As you can see, she has quite wrinkled mucosa and does not want significant volume enlargement. So this is just submucosal injection using very low G prime filler to hydrate the mucosa and to stretch the mucosa to erase the wrinkles. These different filler techniques can be used for different indications to achieve different results. For example, in this patient, it's more of contouring to enhance the cupid's bow. In this patient, is generally to improve the volume and to improve the looks of the mucosa. And again, improving the quality of the mucosa along with some enhancement of the volume. Nefertiti jaw contouring is a combination of filler injection and botulinum injections. So I'm marking the jawline, I'm marking the vertical ramus of the mandible and horizontal ramus of the mandible, and then the platysma muscle which tends the submandibular region. Now this is a pretty good looking young girl who is asking for more definition to the jawline. So I will start the procedure with botulinum injection. It's approximately 20 units injected parallel to the lower border of the mandible into the platysma muscle all along the mandibular border. This will allow the muscle to drape the neck better and give more depth to the neck. And then I'm starting the filler injection, first building up the vertical ramus of the mandible and then injecting along the horizontal ramus. I'm using the needle method by injecting droplets of filler just deep to subcutaneous tissue. series of injection all along the vertical border and the horizontal border of the mandible. Care needs to be taken when you reach the pre-jowl area where the facial artery crosses the mandibular bone. After the injection, gentle massage to spread the filler around will prevent lumpiness. Ensure that the patient is asked to sit up and to check for any asymmetry. And there is often some asymmetry that needs to be corrected. Finally, the pre-jowl area is injected very superficially to prevent any injury to the facial vessel, and then symmetry is achieved. Fillers can be used to treat neck creases as well, the deep neck lines, but the word of caution is to use a very fine filler because it can show as lumps which can last for very long, and to inject just intradermally and subdermally all along the crease line. Now this patient has a pretty good jawline, but she still wants to improve the jawline, and if you carefully look, she has very short vertical ramus of the mandible, and in the frontal view her chin height is short. So I have marked the vertical ramus and the body of the ramus of the mandible, and I am using a cannula to inject into the subcutaneous plane. The key is to inject at the lower border of the angle of the mandible, that will improve the vertical height. So I use about a good 0.5 to 0.8 ml of filler in this area to improve the vertical ramus of the mandible. This is a pretty safe zone, but if you inject deep, you will lose volume without visible enhancement. I have placed another insertion point at the pre-jowl area to go retrogradely to inject into the lower border of the mandible posterior part. A very gentle movement allows a traumatic injection, and this is how we have increased the vertical height of the ramus of the mandible and the chin. This is a patient with a hump deformity in the nose and a droopy tip. So I am going to do a medical rhinoplasty. I am marking the midline, then I will mark the nasion and the tip defining points. I will measure the hump height so that I can proportionally increase the height proximal and distal to the hump. The injection starts with the nasion area. This injection is supraperiosteal. About 0.1 to 0.2 is enough. Any more volume can get displaced laterally and increase the width of the nasion. Then I will inject below the hump, again remaining in the center of the nose, which is a safe zone. Remember, the dorsal nasal artery is on either side of the midline, and it is in the SMAS layer. So if you go deep over the perichondrium, you are in the safe zone. Then I am injecting the tip area to the new tip defining point. So I have injected about 0.4 cc so far, and then I am going to build up the tip lobule. Again, just inject small quantity so it does not displace laterally and increase the width of the nose. So about 0.1 ml has been injected into the tip defining areas, and this is the end result of filler to the nose.